It is true that a lot of the best draft values of the summer end up drying up this late into August. But there is still good draft values out there. And today I'm going to go through the top 10 draft values in 2025 fantasy football. And I'm actually going to go in ranking format here. So make sure to go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support if you get value from the video today. And I'm going to start out from number 10. And the first guy I want to talk about is Ted McMillan of the Carolina Panthers. Now, I will be honest here, I am not the biggest Ted McMillan guy. He was not my favorite prospect coming out of the University of Arizona. But this draft price for a wide receiver one immediately in an offense is pretty enticing when you consider the other guys going around him, like Jerry Jeudy a couple spots in front of him, Jameson Williams, who I think will be good, but Ted McMillan will be this team's number one wide receiver. And his ADP on ESPN is 82.7, and on Yahoo, it is 74.2. So with Ted McMillan here, I think that this value that you could get for a wide receiver one in this range of the draft could end up being a really good flex play that could turn into a solid wide receiver two for your team. Like in my personal rankings, Ted McMillan is around that top 20 range. But again, you're getting Jerry Jeudy going ahead of Ted McMillan in ESPN drafts, for example, right? Well, that should never happen. Now, the only news that has come up recently is that Adam Thielen just this morning, as of the time of this filming, was traded to the Minnesota Vikings, making Jalen Coker a huge deal. And by the way, Jalen Coker, one of my most drafted players on Underdog, is coming true fruition. So I am big on Jalen Coker, not as big on Ted, but when it comes to draft day values and someone that can make an immediate impact in your flex position, I think Ted McMillan is a really good value at that spot. Now at number 9, I've got CeeDee Lamb here, and the reason he's at number 9 is because he's still a first round pick, right? He's still going right at the beginning of your draft, so he can't be that great of a draft day value. But I will say this 6.8 ADP on ESPN and 6.7 ADP on Yahoo, I think that's still low for him. Like, I think he should be going ahead of Justin Jefferson. And I also think that he should be going ahead of all the other running backs in this draft. Now, a lot of people would disagree with me on that, right? Particularly as far as the running backs go. One of those guys is going to be the number one running back in all likelihood between Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, and Bijan Robinson, right? Well, my thought on it has always been this whole offseason. I think CeeDee Lamb could easily finish as the wide receiver one if Jamar Chase doesn't. In fact, I think if Jamar Chase doesn't repeat, I think CeeDee Lamb will be the wide receiver one in fantasy. And the reason I think that is because the Cowboys will have no running game to lean on. This team has Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, Jaden Blue, a big combination of unproven and nothing at the running back position here. So they're going to be forced to throw the ball quite a bit. Now, obviously, George Pickens does impact the volume potential of CeeDee Lamb to some people. To me, I don't think it really affects it that much. I think George Pickens will continue to be what he has been, which has been a 6 to 7 target type of guy. But I think the passing volume that they're going to have in Dallas and the big games that Pickens will have here and there will open things up for CeeDee Lamb even more than really he's ever had over in Dallas, because they really have never had a true number two. So I think that George Pickens actually probably helps CeeDee Lamb a bunch. And again, obviously, he's still a top of the draft pick, so he's not that great of a value. That's why he's in this bottom tier here at number 9. But I still do think the draft value that you could get for CeeDee Lamb in the middle of round 1, I think the middle of round 1 will be really happy with their result getting CeeDee Lamb. Now, at number 8, I've got Chase Brown to round out this bottom tier here. And again, it's a really high draft pick, right? It's not like you're getting some significant value like you did last year when you picked Chase Brown in like the 7th, 8th, 9th round of your redraft leagues. This year, Chase Brown has a 3rd round ADP basically in every format. 26.2 ADP on ESPN and 24.2 ADP on Yahoo. Now again, that price is rising for Chase Brown actively. So I would bet that by the end of the week, everyone will finish their drafts, and Chase Brown probably all week will be going as a back of the 2nd round pick. But I still view it as a very big upside pick for whoever's going in front of him. Someone like a Bucky Irving, right, is going in front of Chase Brown. Now, everybody knows who watches my channel. I'm not as big on Bucky as I am on Chase Brown. I don't hate Bucky Irving by any stretch of the imagination, but I do believe that this offense with Cincinnati is set up more for a Chase Brown than it would be for a Bucky Irving in the Tampa Bay. Because Tampa's new offensive coordinator has talked glowingly about Rachaad White's receiving upside. And I will say that Cincinnati has had a sort of similar rhetoric when it comes to Chase Brown. Like, they have acknowledged that Taj Brooks could be a third down back. Samaje Perine could play a role. But I do believe that Chase Brown proved a lot last year on his first and second down touches, enough to be in this high-powered offense, a really high upside back in the receiving game and just a yards per carry threat, because this guy is super efficient like Bucky Irving. So I think that when you're getting him lower than Bucky Irving, I think it makes for a really good value. But again, he's still in that first couple rounds, so he's not that great of a value. Now, getting into our next tier right here, I've got Khalil Shakir at number 7 here. And listen, Khalil Shakir, to me, I've been on this one for a while. I think Khalil Shakir will be a breakout wide receiver this year, if you don't consider last year a breakout, right? Khalil Shakir finished as the wide receiver 38 last year in a half PPR format, and this year he's not being rewarded with a higher draft price. His price on ESPN is 117.1 ADP, and his Yahoo price is 119.4. Now, with Khalil Shakir, I do think that he is going to finish as a top 30 wide receiver this year, because I've always said this about Buffalo, right? Buffalo's plan this offseason is the development and breakout of Keon Coleman and the development and breakout of Dalton Kincaid. They have made no other moves this offseason to maximize that wide receiver room. They made no additions aside from Josh Palmer from the Los Angeles Chargers, and they signed Khalil Shakir to an extension this offseason. So my opinion on it has always been this. They may want Keon Coleman to take the leap. They may want Dalton Kincaid to take the leap. But based on what we saw from Keon Coleman last year, I have doubts about him taking the leap as a true X receiver in this offense. So if all else fails, Khalil Shakir is on an offense with Josh Allen at quarterback. So I would bet that Josh Allen throws at least 50 to 70 more times in 2025. And Khalil Shakir becomes the beneficiary of more targets as a result of that, because Dalton Kincaid or Keon Coleman or both of those guys just don't come through on their promise. That's what I personally see happening. And at that range of the draft, this is a guy who could step into your flex at a very big discount. Now, the next guy I want to talk about is Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is at number 6, and I have been a big Travis Hunter guy all offseason because his cost has always been pretty low. And I think the reason why is because Travis Hunter obviously comes into an offense with Brian Thomas Jr., a player that everybody rightfully so is really hyped about coming off a strong rookie season. And I'm not here to say that Brian Thomas Jr. will not be a strong wide receiver play in fantasy. I value Brian Thomas Jr. as a high-end to mid-end second-round pick in fantasy drafts this year. But I have always said consistently that Travis Hunter will get targets. I want to make sure everybody's clear on that, because at one point, it was not cool to acknowledge that in 2025 fantasy football. But at this point, you have to acknowledge that they drafted this guy to be, if nothing else, a wide receiver when push comes to shove. I'm sure they will use him at cornerback, but when things come to a head, they will use him as a wide receiver first. And his draft price at 81 ADP on ESPN and 74.4 ADP on Yahoo doesn't indicate that everybody's on the same page with this one. I mean, we're talking about a guy who I believe will get 100 plus targets in this offense, and I think that is such a dominant athlete that he could get in the end zone 10 or more times this season. So I think whenever he does have his big games, they will be week-winning performances. But I will also say about this one, he will give you some disappearing acts, I believe, and you do need to be weary of that in a redraft format. But at this price, I think it's well worth it. Now, the next guy to round out this tier is Emeka Egbuka at number 5. Now, Emeka Egbuka has, without question, risen up in drafts significantly over the past several weeks because there's been a lot of turbulence with the Tampa Bay wide receivers. Chris Godwin will not start out the year on the active roster, and Jalen McMillan will be missing basically half of the season, according to reports. So everything is basically opened up for Emeka Egbuka to be the wide receiver 2 right away in this offense behind Mike Evans. And I've always been sniffing this one out all offseason long as well. Emeka Egbuka has been one of my most drafted players on Underdog because I saw this one coming all offseason. When they drafted this guy, everybody assumed that he was not going to make much of an impact year one. And I said to myself, something's off here. Either they've seen something from Chris Godwin to indicate he will not recover as fast or as good as he used to be, or B, Mike Evans is about to be taken by father time, for lack of a better term. And what I mean by that is that he will be not as effective because of age. I think Emeka Egbuka has a legitimate shot to be the wide receiver one in Tampa Bay. And at this price, with 105.5 ADP in ESPN and 98.6 on Yahoo, this is still a very affordable price. If he's Tampa's wide receiver one, he should be a third-round pick at the very minimum. So I think that this shot to take on Emeka Egbuka is so ideal at this particular range. You've got to jump on it this week. Now, getting into our next tier right here, I've got Jalen Waddle at number 4. And this shouldn't come as a surprise to the people who regularly watch my videos, because I've been out on Tyreek and I've been in on Jalen Waddle all offseason. He's one of my most drafted players on Underdog this offseason, and his ESPN and Yahoo ADP is still really awesome as well. 73.7 ADP on ESPN and 67.8 ADP on Yahoo. Now, like Emeka Egbuka, he has risen up a little bit in drafts. Not to the same level as Egbuka, but he is rising because of the fact that I think a lot of people are seeing Tyreek Hill and the issues that we could have with Tyreek Hill in 2025. Because this guy has looked like he has lost the locker room at this point, and I think there's a realistic shot that he just doesn't perform well, even if he's healthy for the full 2025, which looks like it might be impossible as well. All the while, Jalen Waddle has quietly had this really dominant offseason in Miami that they have been talking about in Miami as well. This guy looks like he's stepping up to be a more vocal leader. Also a lead by example type of player in this Miami offense. So I think Jalen Waddle at this price, he could be the wide receiver one for this team. And if he's the wide receiver one in Miami with a healthy Tua, I legitimately think he has top 10 upside as a wide receiver. Now, to round out this tier, I've got Tyler Warren at number 3. And I'm a big Tyler Warren guy. The thing about Tyler Warren is that this guy was drafted immediately to be the starting tight end in Indianapolis. There's no questions about that. Now, the other thing that really should have made you excited about the preseason was with Tyler Warren, that he played basically all the snaps with the starters. And that starting quarterback will be Daniel Jones. Now, that's nothing to throw a parade about, right? Like, nobody is saying that Daniel Jones is some elite quarterback in the NFL. But he is a better quarterback for Tyler Warren in all pass catchers, really, than Anthony Richardson would have been. He will get a ton of work in this offense. And his price is going up, but it is not going up enough to where I am deterred from taking him. Particularly on ESPN, where he has a 101 ADP, and he's being drafted behind guys like Mark Andrews and David Njoku. Now, with Njoku in particular, I think that he could be really good, but I do think Tyler Warren will be better. So I think at an opportunity cost, Tyler Warren is well worth it. And on Yahoo, his ADP is 111.7. He's even cheaper in those drafts. I think where you're getting him at is a major steal in fantasy drafts. Now, getting into our last tier, I did want to give a bonus guy just for people who play Underdog. And if you do not play Underdog, I think you should. Because if you're wanting to get a quarterback early, a lot of these quarterbacks go super, super early. They're premium costs in ESPN and Yahoo formats. But in Underdog, you can get Jalen Hurts in the 4th round, the middle of the 4th round. 43.4 ADP on Underdog is where you can get Jalen Hurts. Now, I've been discussing Jalen Hurts all offseason and how much I love him in Underdog drafts. He did not get the tush push taken away from him. He will be running that in constantly this year, like he always has been. He's a rushing quarterback who will give you that consistent rushing and rushing touchdown upside. That's a check mark. The second thing, and I've been talking about this all offseason, is Saquon Barkley will lose carries this year. Book it. They cannot afford to give him more opportunities on a per-game basis because history indicates that every one of those players, after a 350-plus touch season, which Saquon just had in 2024, they would get injured if they got more opportunities per game. So Jalen Hurts will throw the ball more this year. So you raise his upside from the passing game with that rushing upside, I think it's a great price for him on Underdog. And if you're not on Underdog already, they are offering something pretty awesome right now, which I think you should take advantage of. You can go into Underdog, and if you play just $5, so if you get in the Puppy 4, which is a $5 buy-in, they will give you $50 back to your account. So they will throw free money right at your face to go play more Underdog drafts and give yourself a chance to win big money. And I won $19,000 playing Underdog Best Ball last year, so I think you should give yourself a shot at winning the big money this year. Now, the last two guys that I did want to go through were Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs at number 2 on this list right here. And again, he's a really early round pick as well. But if you know this channel and where I've been ranking Josh Jacobs at all offseason, this is a huge value. Josh Jacobs is 19.5 off the board on ESPN, and his Yahoo ADP is 16.5. Now, my rankings have him as my number 6 overall player. Now, of course, you should never draft based off my rankings. You need to play the ADP game and try to get him in the second round of drafts. But if he was a first round player by draft value, I would have no issue taking him, and that's the reason I view him as a great value pick in fantasy drafts this year. We're talking about a workhorse running back on a great offense behind a great offensive line in Green Bay with a great offensive-minded head coach and a good quarterback. I don't understand where people don't see this one as a great value. I have no clear backup at this point in Green Bay. This guy is going to be a great draft day value. Enough said. I genuinely do not understand why people don't see this one the same way I do. So Josh Jacobs, to me, I think is just a great draft day value, but not as good as Deebo Samuel, who I've got at number 1. I love Deebo Samuel's price this year so much. He's one of my most drafted players on Underdog. 105.8 ADP on ESPN and 99.7 ADP on Yahoo. This guy has been my guy of mine all offseason long. I love Deebo Samuel a lot, and I have no metrics to back it up. Don't ask me for them, because last year, metrics would indicate this guy did decline. And I am not even saying he didn't, but I love the opportunity cost this year for a player who has been a top 12, top 2 wide receiver in the past in fantasy football. He's on a new team with an offense who has another offensive mind, like Kyle Shanahan, who wants to use him as he should be used out of the backfield and in screen positions. This guy will be targeted all over the field like he was in San Francisco and on a contract year, so he wants more money. I think Deebo Samuel, this is a gut call for me entirely, and I always tell you guys, go with your gut, because Deebo Samuel, to me, is going to be a huge gut call for me in drafts as I go through a bunch of redraft drafts this week. So let me know what your favorite draft value is in 2025. And if you want to see the most overpriced players in 2025 drafts, click on this video right here.